Rivers.
I am so excited to have you on the show today, Katie. Since you and I met in Costa Rica, I was like, this woman is incredible and just changing so many people's lives. Even mind you, you're a superstar, right? You're incredible and you have just your reputation is incredible. But even if you didn't have all of that, whenever you walk into a room, there's an energy that it follows you. And it's such a beautiful thing. And hearing your story and everything you've been through too, it's not something like that just happened, right? You had to work on that.
Amen.
And I think that kind of goes into today's episode and what we're really going to be focusing on.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I am pumped and I cannot wait to chat about what we're going to chat about because it's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yes, and we're talking today about self-worth and burning yourself out on both ends. And it was so funny, Katie, really, you resonated with me so much when we were in Costa Rica. You were like, nobody's giving you a badge of honor that you worked the most. And that hit me so hard because I always put my self-worth with how hard I was working. I'm like, oh, I'm a hustler. I might not be able to do as much of you as in a day, but I can always work harder than you, and it was just always something I was so proud of with myself. But it's okay, but at the end of the day, I'm tired. I didn't eat. I am having thyroid issues because I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping. And then you're exhausted, but you're fatigued. So then you're having a glass of wine before you go to bed and then your blood sugar, you know what I mean? All these things. And it's you can't, it's just not obtainable.
No, I agree. And I knew that we were going to be talking about this. So I found these two quotes that I really resonate with. I want to read them to your listener. So the first one is, what if we're burnt out not because we're doing too much, but because we're doing too little of what lights us up? And I have chills just saying that, right?
Yeah, wow.
And then the second thing is instead of asking, have I worked hard enough to deserve rest? I started asking, have I rested enough to do my most loving, meaningful work? And I think that is where the modern woman has to start showing up from that place because, and you know my story, but really in a nutshell, I was programmed from a very young age that all of my self-worth was around how much I could do, how perfect I could be, how pretty I could be, how thin I could be, how smart I could be. And a lot of my just childhood memories was getting love when I achieved something. And then that love was very conditional upon if I was showing up and being a good girl and achieving, or if I was not achieving. And then in my mind as a child, then you're bad. So when that starts to be your reality as a child, it becomes a subconscious addiction that all of my self-worth, all of my enoughness is always going to come at the expense of burning myself down to an absolute cinder. And I lived most of my life like that. My dad was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and my mom and him had a very tumultuous relationship. So as a young child, you're like, okay, if I'm just good enough and I get good grades and I get the solo in the choral concert or whatever, then my parents won't fight, then my dad won't drink, my dad won't do drugs, even though that's not true. But as a child, that's how you think. Right. And then what happens is that just spills over into your adult life. So I was always type A, always perfectionist, overachiever, right? Getting the t-shirt 10 times over always. And then I was thinking the other day, I was actually talking to my husband because I knew I was going to come on this podcast. So he was like, oh, what are you going to talk about on, Katarina's podcast? And I was telling him and he's like, oh, geez, they're going to have a ball talking about that. Right. But I was talking to him about how, so many women in this day and age, including you and I, we were kind of sold this bill of goods that was you have to bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan and look beautiful and be smart and eloquent and have the perfect home and the perfect Instagram feed. And that is what success looks like. And in the last year, I'm 44 years old now. And I think about how my whole entire life up until maybe just a couple of years ago, all of my self-worth and respect for myself came from how much I could burn myself totally out. And then being, with my husband, we've been married for 10 years, being with him, it was the first time in my life where I didn't feel like I had to sing for my supper with people, which was really scary because I was like, wait a minute, this is not a normal relationship. Usually I have to always be shucking and jiving, whistling in the marketplace, popping it on the sidewalk for people. And he was like, yeah, I don't need you to do that. Like, I love you for who you are. Like, if you want to sit on the couch and just like flick your bean and watch Real Housewives for a week, like, and eat bonbons, like, go off, sis. And I was like, no, 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 no. There's got to be a catch. There's got to be a catch. And then when you start to surround yourself with people who are really unconditionally just loving you and respecting you for who you truly are, not like what you can give them and how much you can do, it starts to create this sense of like letting out like a big sigh in your life because you're just like, oh my God, I don't have to hold this energetic space, which it's the holding of the energetic space that is what truly burns us out as women. And we were lied to from a very young age that said like, we have to do all these things, or if we don't, we're just nobodies, and we're just going to kind of like go into the black abyss. I don't know if you ever feel that way. Do you ever feel like that? Like, if I'm not creating content on social media and if I'm not giving in service and providing and helping and doing all the things, like, I'm worthless.
Exactly.
Do you feel
Yeah.
the same? Okay.
Yes, all the time. Yeah. I mean, just like the guilt of like Sunday, even yesterday, right? Yesterday was Sunday. We're recording on a Monday. And so, like, I saw people all day, for the past 4 days, boom, boom, boom. And I gave and gave. But then on Sunday, I'm like, I really should, because I think I told you I've been going back to school. So I've been doing
Yeah.
more nutrition things. And so I was like, I really should be doing my course right now. I really should be doing this. And I was like, but I'm so burnt, And so I had to like be in tune with myself and say, you know what, like, you're allowed to do this, because if not, like, you're not going to be able to give anymore, and
Well,
versus older me, I think would have just started working or just
mhm.
sat the whole day and almost like wallowed. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yes. And I realized something, and you just struck a chord when you were just speaking. I realized in the last handful of years that when you're showing up in any way, whether it's to serve a client, to make dinner for your husband, to make sure you call your mom, right? Like, you got to make sure you call your mom. Anytime you're doing these things out of a place of like, I have to, it's not coming from a place of divine, high vibrational frequency intention. It's actually coming from a place of ego. And anytime you show up from a place of ego, like, if I don't check the boxes, I'm not going to feel like I did the thing, then it's never going to come off the right way. And it's actually going to signal to God, the universe, whatever you believe in, that there's never enough. There's not enough to go around. And I always have to be, like the one-armed wallpaper hanger. That's like an old thing that my grandmother used to say. She's like, you're busier than a one-armed wallpaper hanger. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then when I got older, I was like, oh my God, now I totally understand what she was saying, right? So you have to ask yourself, is the thing I'm about to do coming from a place of purpose and intention? Or is it coming from a place of, I don't want people to be mad at me. I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want people to talk shit and say like, oh, Katarina, she's really dropping the ball. Like, and I know that's a fear of yours too, because it's been
Yes.
always been a fear of mine, and to always look good to other people from the outside. When on the inside, I literally felt like, and I'm sure you can resonate with this, and a lot of your listeners too, you feel like you're dying on the inside. So it's like you're showing up like, hey guys, like, here I am, I'm at your service. But on the inside, you're screaming like, please, like, let me just get like into a little car accident so that I can go to the hospital for a couple of days and just like take a break. I swear to God, like, when I was really building my company, and I have a solopreneurship company. I make multiple seven figures a year. Obviously I have a team, but like, it's like my own thing. But I remember back in the day when I was really starting my company, and I would literally pray for something bad to happen to me. Not like too bad where I was maimed and I couldn't ever like walk again, but just like enough just to like go to like a hospital for a couple of days, just to like be like, oh, I'm in the hospital. Like, I can't come to the studio and train you. I can't coach you. I can't help you with that thing.
Because
Instead of just,
because then you would feel guilty, right? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because then if not, you'd be like, everybody gives me a pass. I'm hurt.
yes. Because I'm in the hospital, and if you didn't give me a pass, like, you were a psychopath. But instead of just saying, you know what, like, I'm tired today and I'm going to just take a mental health day and like, I'll reschedule you for next week. Like, the people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter. That's like an old Dr. like quote or whatever. And I always have to keep that in the back of my head. And, just because people have been in your life for a while, whether they're a client or a friend or an acquaintance, coworker, etc., not everyone is supposed to like ride that ride forever. And sometimes like people will just come into your life for these moments to teach you something, to help you with something, whatever. But if you putting your boundaries out there to say like, hey, I've been burning the candle at both ends and holding a match in between, and I am like on my last leg and I'm like one nutty butter away from the loony bin. If someone does not understand that, then they probably should not be part of your precious human life. And it's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, especially in the entrepreneurial service industry, that we're both in, because I think what happens is we get service provider burnout. And instead of just like taking these little moments being like, you know what, I have to fill up my cup today because I'm not feeling so fresh, we wait until we fall into the shit pit and no one can pull us out. Never mind us pulling ourselves out, right? So I think that when we really take a step back and we say, okay, how are we showing up in the world? Is it in alignment with who we truly are and what we truly desire in our lives? And if it's not, we have to just start strategically and methodically and chunking it down, because I think a lot of times too, and I'm sure you've seen this before, maybe felt like this in the past, you get to the point where you're so frustrated that you're like, I have to blow up my life. I have to pull the ripcord. I have to like TNT kaboom, right? And I used to be that way. But now that I'm older and I've been around the block a few times, what I do is I start to realize that it's a strategic pulling back of little pieces at a time. Like I've had a wellness center for over 25 years. And it shut down during the pandemic. And I didn't really reopen it for regular classes. I did more like events and things like that because I own my building. So it's there regardless. I own it, right? So when I told my husband I was going to go back to teaching classes, he's like, why are you doing this? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I've been doing this for 25 years. Like, this is who I am. I'm Katie Boyd's Misfit Club. I'm ambitious. I'm wicked fit. I'm all these things. And he's like, no, that's who you were. And the pandemic gave you this moment to take a step back. And of course, I got mad at him because I'm like, you ain't going to tell me what to do. I'm an independent woman. And it's so funny because a year later, I've had my studio back open. And in the last like couple months, I have been feeling like burnt out and like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And there's just like an easier way. And the old way, I would just like blow up my life. But now I'm just like, okay, maybe I do 4 classes a week. And now maybe next month I cut it down to 2 and see how that feels. Or I do more events. And one of the ways to know that you're burnt out and that your self-worth is coming from how you're showing up and how much you're giving on a daily basis is the things that you've done for a really long time that used to seem super easy, like you could just do them with your hands tied behind your back. They start to feel really hard and difficult and exhausting and soul-sucking.
I get that. Or I make messes. I don't know if you're like that, but I would be making my coffee and it's like my coffee, I'm spilling it everywhere. Then I'm pissed I spilt my coffee. I got to change, you know what I mean? Or you like go to put your mascara on, you hit yourself in the eye. Like it's like the whole thing.
Yeah, well, because it's usually because like whatever you're doing after you put the mascara on and drink the coffee is probably not in alignment with who you are and who you're evolving into. And just because you have always done something, let's just say from the time you were a child until like recently, I've just always done this thing and this is just always who I've been and this is how I've always showed up. That doesn't mean that you can't wake up the next day and choose a new way of being. Right? But people, especially people in the service industry, they get so comfortable with the thing every day, that they don't realize that on the other side of that comfort zone is the thing, the next thing. I always tell people the obstacle is the way. I'm very stoic about the way I like look at the world now as I get older. And it's like the thing that you don't want to do, the thing that's really scary, the thing that's unknown is always the next thing. Right? The thing that's like, oh my God, how am I going to afford this? Or how am I going to have time for this? Or what if it doesn't work out? Or, what if I put all this effort and attention to this thing and it doesn't work out? But it's like, but what if it does? What if everything is over there? But we're so stuck in this little like whirlpool of hypnotic rhythm that we've always done the last 10, 15, 20 years of our lives. Like sometimes we have to really truly let the old us die to evolve into that next person. But it's scary.
Yeah. And I feel like if you don't do it, I mean, you could be in a situation like I'm in, where it happens to you. The universe will do it. It will happen in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I always tell my clients, because I coach a lot of women in the service industry or whatever. And I always say, you have two choices. Either you put your big rubber underwear on, your big girl panties, and you do the thing on your own. Like, so if something's not showing up in the right way, or, you're doing these things that are just like, don't feel fulfilling anymore, you're super burnt out, or you can see how your self-worth is tied to something and it's not like for you, you can either say, okay, I am the HBIC, right? The head bitch in charge of my life. And I am going to make the decision to start methodically and strategically just kind of revamping and taking those things away that just aren't making me feel good. Or you leave it up to the universe. And I always tell people, you are better off doing it on your own recognizance, because if you allow the universe to pull the cord, it may not be the way that you want it to be. So at least if you kind of like start dismantling those parts of your life on your own, you have the control. But if you just keep like turning that blind eye to it, the universe is going to be like, okay, you don't want to do this, and I'm just going to do it the way I think is best. And that can be really scary. And I've had that happen to me before, where I just kept being like, I know this isn't for me, but I'm just going to keep doing it because I don't want to just like upset the apple cart, because then people won't love me and they won't like me and everyone's going to think like, oh, Katie's lost her mind and all this stuff. It's like, and then the 2x4 hits you in the forehead. And then you're left with no choice but to like be at the mercy of someone else or something else, when you could have just fixed it on your own recognizance, So I get it. And I've been there before, and some of my best lessons, not only in business, but just in life in general, have come from the 2x4 hitting me in the back of the head. But I really, really, really warn against allowing that to happen, if possible.
Yeah, if you can, I would recommend like trying to align yourself, and I think,
Absolutely.
but that's again, like, I think if you stay in that stressful place of like, oh, this is what I have to do, I have to perform, I have to do this and that. And then I do think whenever you sit back and you look, which is what I was doing, I was sitting back and I was looking and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it was stressing me out just thinking about going back to being like the hustler and seeing 10 to 12 clients, boom, 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 like sardines,
Yes.
And so I think it's like, too, my energy no longer aligned with that.
No.
Yeah.
And you've known it probably for a really long time, but you just kept being like, but I'm making really good money. We make excuses and we rationalize like why we should just keep doing something, like I make a lot of money right now, and I have for a really long time. But there's parts of my life that I'm like, but how much is enough? Like, do you get to a place, where you're just like, I don't know, I just kind of really deeply desire just to like do more creative, fun things and not have to be like telling everyone what to do all the time and manipulating them and, and as you know, because you do know me, I'm a really tough coach. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat shit. I'm not Willy Wonka. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm going to do it from a very loving place. But because I'm an elder in this industry, I can kind of see things coming down the pipeline for a lot of people and like what's going to happen. So sometimes I will get more aggressive with certain clients, but then there's just days where I'm just like, that feels so heavy and it feels so old Katie. It's like Katie 1.0 and like I'm Katie 6.0 and I keep trying to like go back to that old way. And every time you go back to that old way, it's gonna nip you in the ass every time. And people just sometimes have to learn the hard way. And I just don't want to learn the hard way anymore. I've learned the hard way for too long. I'm exhausted by that. I just want to learn the easy way.
Yeah, you're like, I need an absolute break. Well, and I think too, from a listener perspective, I think all of us as women, especially, which we do have a couple men that listen, but is mainly women, where we are constantly, like you said, like we're giving, and then like we're in that space where if we choose to have kids, it's like you said, you have to be a mom, you have to be the wife, you have to give, especially if you're a beauty professional. And so it doesn't stop, you're constantly giving, or in your line of work, you're exchanging energy. You know what I mean? Constantly. You're giving motivational energy, right? And so even if you're like, teaching classes or, whatever, like you're giving energy. Like I had someone recently, she said to me, she goes, you're at someone's head chakra all day. And I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that.
I tell that to my clients all the time, especially people who are in aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, you are touching someone's crown chakra. You're touching someone's third eye. You're touching someone's throat chakra and their heart mostly. Okay. So you're touching everyone's upper chakras. What people don't understand, especially if you're an empath in the beauty industry, which most beauty professionals are empaths, which is why you got into the beauty industry, because you deeply desire to help make people feel their best and feel beautiful, because you know as an empath what it's like to not feel good about yourself. So you're like, I know how shitty it feels when I don't feel good about myself. So my desire, my purpose in life is to help other people feel beautiful, not just on the outside, but on the inside as well. So you give 110% of yourself during that service. And I always tell people, like, when your clients are walking in and they're wacky and they're frenetic and they're trying to trauma dump on you and stuff like that, it's up to you as the service provider to say, like, no, this is my room, this is my business, I'm going to control this energy in here, I'm like the top of the pyramid. And so what I do, because I do a lot of energy healing on people along with my business coaching, because what people don't understand is your business is never going to level up unless your energy gets in alignment, right? So a lot of the stuff I do with my business coaching clients is a lot of energy, a lot of shadow work, a lot of spiritual, recalibration. But you as the service provider have to say, like, hey Sharon, let's take a really nice deep breath together. I know that you're feeling some sort of way today. Why don't we have a really quiet service? Just talk to me if you need to ask a question, but like, I just want you to breathe and I just want you to ground and I want you to center yourself. And then you give her such a gift because she thinks like, oh, Katarina or whomever, she wants to hear my life story and why I'm so stressed out and what my husband is doing, why my children are being little bastards, and I'm sure you hear all this stuff in your services, right? But it's up to us as the leaders in the service that we're giving to calibrate the energy. And when you're not doing that and you're touching up all in people's energy fields, and you're not filling up your cup every day and you're not protecting yourself and your energy, that's by the end of the day, after you've done 6, 7, 8 facials or whatever, that's why you get home and there's no energy left for your significant other. There's no energy left to work out or eat right or, calibrate your rest because you're so drained and you're so burnt out. And that all comes, full circle with, the self-worth stuff. Everything is connected, right? So it's up to us to calibrate our energies and protect ourselves and really truly take control of not just like the service or the session that we're giving, but like every aspect of our business. Because what's the point of being an entrepreneur and having a successful business if it makes you feel like a bag of smashed buttholes every day?
Right. It's true. And I do think that also pertains, like I noticed like my earlier career, right? Like I wasn't attracting my ideal clientele. And so I've noticed too, and I'm sure you can, relate to that, where I feel like the older I've gotten and the more I've been doing, marketing and social media and even the podcast, like you start to, the energy that you're putting out, you start to like slowly attract like your people. And so I've had less and less of that, which is so beautiful. But no matter what, even if it's someone you absolutely love and adore and they're amazing, because we're givers, we're giving so much of ourselves every single day. Even if you're not a beauty professional, like you're giving it to your kids, you're giving it to your loved ones. And so as women, we're just constantly giving. And there is something so beautiful. Like, I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes I even crave like an empty house at 5 minutes because it's all of a sudden your senses go, I only have to focus on me. And most of the time it's like, oh, I didn't even realize, like, I just wanted to sit, or I just wanted to read my book, or gosh, I just wanted to take a shower for 10 minutes. It's like weird things.
Yeah, just sit in the sun or pet your animal or just like take a couple deep breaths in between clients and just like reground and recalibrate. Absolutely. I also think too is we're not doing daily rituals to really fill up our cup, right? A lot of service providers, and I coach a lot of them, what they do is like they get up first thing in the morning, they go coffee, fine, beautiful, whatever, caffeinate yourself, right? Go off. Right to the phone. They're checking their Instagram. They're checking their Facebook. They're checking their TikTok. They're checking their emails. As soon as you do that, before you fill up your cup and you do your rituals to like really make your energetic vibrational frequency as high as you can get it, you're already too late. You've totally given up control to the outside world. And then what happens is everything that comes into your periphery that entire day, all is centered around the outside world. And so what you have to do, and this is what I really teach, all the women that I coach, is fill up your cup first thing in the morning, right? So I have them create this thing, right? Because my whole brand is Ambitchious, right? Being in total control of herself, right? Being the HBIC of your ambitious life is, we call it the bitch list. So it's like, what are the 3 to 5 things every day that if I do these 3 to 5 things, I am going to feel so put together. My energy is going to be totally filled to the brim. For me, it's like my prayer and meditation, and it's, what I listen to and what I allow into my body. Like, in the morning, sometimes I'll have my coffee and I'll listen to like really something inspirational, maybe on YouTube, or a really inspirational podcast, right? I'm never going to go on the news. I'm not going to check my Instagram DMs. I'm not going to check my emails, because that's what people want from you. Right? So it's like, the people are still going to want stuff from you by the end of the day, or like in a couple hours. So like, let it be, but like fill up your own cup first, right? So it's like prayer, meditation, breath work, having my coffee, getting inspired, moving my body, whether it's like lifting weights or doing a movement practice like yoga or Pilates, or just like walking out in nature, setting my intentions for the day. Like, what do I desire from this day? So like, when I got up this morning and I knew I was podcasting with you, I'm like, okay, God, let me just speak to Katarina's listeners. Let me, instill seeds. Let me plant the seeds in them. Let me inspire them. Let me motivate them. Right. Same thing with like the clients that I'm going to see today. Like, let me fill them up. Let me give them everything I can. Like, I really am intentional about everything I do. And then after that, whatever happens for the rest of the day is literally gravy, because you've already totally filled yourself up, right? So then at the end of the day, most people, they didn't do any of that stuff for themselves. They gave 150% of themselves to all of their clients and their kids and their husbands and their significant others and their friends and their families and their colleagues and whatever. And then what happens is you lay your head on that pillow at the end of the night and you're just like, this cannot be it. There has to be more than that. And yes, there is, honey, but you're in control of that reality. So if you're just like giving and giving and giving, and you're not open to that divine feminine energy of receiving, and men need the divine feminine energy too. They have to have that balance, right? So a lot of us too are in a state of very toxic masculine energy, because that was the way that we were raised. I was raised by a first generation feminist, and my mom was very abused. So my mom would say to me, don't ever rely on a man to, support you. And they could just leave at a drop of a dime. And you don't want to have a man have, money control over you. So when you're a little kid and you hear your mother, your caregiver, right, your family of origin saying that to you, you're like, holy shit, like, I got to hustle. I got to grind. I got to make sure that I make so much money and I'm so secure that the other shoe can never drop. And then from the jump, you're in that state of not enoughness, and all of my self-worth comes from what? How much money I can make and how many people I can give service to, and how I can just give and give and give and give. And the thing is like, while I understand feminism and I am a feminist, right? But I also feel like there has to be this balance between the masculine and the feminine. And it's so crazy, because if you really look at feminism as a whole, it's coming from a masculine place. It's coming from a place of like, we got to push, we got to get what's ours, we got to do this, we got to do that. No one's going to control us. And it's like, yeah, but if you're coming from a place of like the balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, then you're understanding like, there's going to be times that I have to get up and I have to create and I have to push. And there's also going to be times where I have to receive and I have to be. But who, and I don't know about you, but I can only speak for myself, who's teaching us that?
Right.
Like, unless your mother was like a high priestess of a tribe and your father was like some medicine man, like no one's teaching modern Western women and men how to show up in these ways where we're showing up in a way where it's healthiest for us first. Because if we're healthy and we feel like we are enough just as we are, we don't have to like do and do and do to be more worthy, then everything else that's for us just is attracted to us, and everything else for us falls in line. And to your point, how you were saying like before, you used to attract like not your ideal clients. Remember, everyone that's in your life is you pushed out. They're a mirror to you. So then you have to say to yourself, okay, if I'm attracting these like shitbag clients, how am I being a shitbag in my own life to myself? So it's like we will attract what we are most afraid of, but also what we're doing and inflicting into ourselves. So like we have really pushy clients who don't respect our time, who late cancel, who don't tip us well. Well, how are we showing up in that way for ourselves, right? We're not buying the nice things for ourselves. We're buying it for our children. I have so many clients who are like, I dress like a peasant, but my kids are in like, Versace. I'm like, what?
Like,
Right?
why?
Or like I fed my children and my husband like a three course, like 5-star meal, but I had like one like protein shake today and I sipped it like throughout the day in between clients and I feel really hungry right now and now I'm going to go home and binge eat because I haven't eaten all day. So it's like we have to think about how we're showing up for ourselves first, because everyone that we attract in our lives and the opportunities and experience is us pushed out. So you have to ask yourself, am I being the highest, healthiest version of myself in this moment? And am I doing things on a minute to minute basis that are helping me feel the way I desire to feel? Like, right when Costa Rica, we worked a lot on core desired feelings. And what does success mean to me? Because success to me 25 years ago is definitely not what I think is success now. So these are all things that not just people in the service industry and people who are entrepreneurs should think about. This is for anyone, whether you're a mother, you're a dad, you're a best friend, you're a sister, you're a brother, it doesn't matter. It's like everyone should be thinking about these things. And if everyone did show up like this, the world would be a much different place than it is now.
Well, and there is something like that you said about whenever, what does success mean to you, where you really do have to think about that. And whenever you actually brought that up on your app, which you guys have to check out Katie's app, we're going to link everything down below. It was incredible. You said that to me. You were like, what is holding you back from living the life, that you've always wanted? And I thought about it because it really didn't have to do necessarily with finances. It was my control of doing things for myself in the morning. So you'll be proud of me. I have my work phone and my personal phone are no longer in my bedroom. They're charging in the kitchen, and I have like a Hatch alarm clock, which I've had forever, but I just, you put something away and then you don't touch it. So now I have that, and I wake up to an alarm, but most of the time now I wake up even before that because I've been prioritizing my sleep. But then I give myself where I'm like, no, I'm going to work out. I'm going to move my body in the way that I feel like I need. Because, depending on the time of the month, I feel a little different.
That's right.
Depending on the day.
Right.
But it's just, I did something for me. And then if I'm going to do something, I'll read my book for a little bit. I don't sit there and I scroll, because if not, as soon as you turn that phone on, it's just like constant overstimulation. And like you said, it's just like give, take. And I just couldn't do it anymore. Where now it's like at the end of my workout, I'll be like walking on the treadmill and I'm doing voice memos to my clients because it's so easy. And I'm like, sorry if I sound out of breath, but it's so nice that I've taken that time. And it's even like my cat, I've trained my cat now. My cat in the morning comes up to me and he goes, he's like, Mom, we go outside and we sit in the screen-in porch and we have our coffee. Yep. Maybe didn't give myself that time, right? Like you said, like we can't control everything. He tells me. So I've almost like ingrained in my cat what I should be doing for myself every day. And it makes a difference, and I show up differently, and I feel at the end of the day like I did something for me. And I feel like it's so important, any industry you're in, whatever you're doing, like we have to put our head on our pillow and be like, okay, what did I give and what did I do for myself that made me feel like, okay, I'm fulfilled? Because I can get rid of someone's acne and I can fix all this. And don't get me wrong, like those things bring me to tears and make me so happy. But if I'm not doing something for myself, I still feel, it's like you have this little thing in the back of you that's like, I just feel a little empty. I need a hug,
Yes. Absolutely. And another thing is resentment is one of the lowest vibrational frequency feelings on this earth. And why do you get resentment? Because you're giving to everyone else. You're not giving to yourself. And there's so many factors, right? There's like who you are, like what your sign is, what your human design is, what your personality is, what you've gone through, trauma. I mean, there's so many layers of this stuff that we could get into. We could be on this podcast for the next 40 years just talking about this kind of stuff, right? But one of the things was for me, when I was not doing the things back in the day that were not making me feel whole, I would first get super frustrated. Then the frustration would turn into anger. And then that anger would turn into resentment towards my clients or people who were taking from me. And then I would get really snippy and really douchey and bitchy and like short tempered and all that stuff. And then I had to take a step back and saying, who's making me like this? I'm allowing myself to be this way because I'm not doing the things for myself that are filling up my cup so that I can go out into the world and live my purpose and help people fill in the blank, right? So that is really the conundrum of people in the service industry. That's the conundrum of the healer. So even though maybe you're a skincare professional, you're in the healing arts, because when you're touching people and you're like loving on them and you're helping them heal their acne, their nutrition so that they glow from the inside out and all these other things. You're in the service industry. You have to make sure that you're first serving yourself. Okay. The other thing is too, and this is something that I've been really trying to work on, is it says in the Bible, and I'm going to butcher the Bible. I grew up Catholic, but like, I'm not like the Bible sermon of all sermons, right? But I will say there's a part of the Bible that says, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be like a little child. And so the kingdom of heaven, and I don't care what your religious affiliation is, what you believe in, whatever, everyone desires to have joy and harmony and all those things that are like heaven-like, right? Heaven is not up there in the clouds, and hell is not down in the depths of the earth, the fire and brimstone. Heaven and hell are in our own reality. So it's like, what are you choosing on a minute-to-minute basis? Are you choosing things that help you feel the way you desire to feel? Are you doing those things that align with who you desire to be? Or are you doing things that are the opposite of the way you want to feel? And are you surrounding yourself with people and experiences and thoughts and words and deeds that are creating that hellish experience on this earth, right? So I always tell people, go and think, if you're not feeling so fresh, let's just say you're having a hard time in your life, whether it's business, relationships, it doesn't matter. I always tell people, think back of when you were a little kid and you were like living your best life. Like, what were you doing? What was like so fulfilling to you? Was it dancing? Was it singing? Was it going out into nature? Was it being with your animals? Was it doing, crafts or playing in the garden or whatever? And when you ask yourself that question, and then in real time as an adult, you start to just act a little bit like more of like a child, you start to realize, oh my God, these are the things that actually fill up my soul. So for me, back in the day as a child, I was like the bossy bitch, right? So like we would play Barbies and I would like tell everyone like, no, your Barbie has to say this and do this and be this way, blah, blah, blah. And then my Barbie's like this. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally just playing dolls with my friends now, but I'm coaching them to take their businesses to 6 and 7 figures, to heal their trauma, to level up their lives, right? I also used to love to play in the garden and go out in nature. And I realized that when I don't do that a lot as an adult, I start to feel like my energy drops and I start to feel really like angry and frustrated. And you almost feel like you just like want to like run away or like rip your like clothes off and just scream. I don't know if you've ever felt like that before. But it's because you're not doing things that help you feel that childlike fun and play. We're not playing enough in this day and age, and that's why we feel so attached to the money that we make, and the things that we do for people is attached to our worth. And then, as you know, you could do everything and more, and people still aren't going to see your worth, and they're still not going to be thankful. I mean, not everyone is a nice person on this planet. So it's like, if we are leaning on other people to tell us how good we are and to thank us constantly and to also show up the way that we show up for other people, if we're waiting for that and we're leaning on that, we're going to live a very disappointed, sad life. And I think a lot of people, and I'm sure you've felt this in your own life at certain points too, that really resonates, and it resonates with me still to this day. And that's how I know I'm off track, because I start to feel those like yucky feelings again. And then I have to come back to and say, like, is the thing I'm about to do going to help me feel the way I desire to feel? And if the answer is no, I don't give a shit if it makes you $1 million in an hour. You cannot say yes to it, because it's going to chip away little by little at who you are and your soul, period.
Yeah. And we've talked about that. And I was working with brands that I always wanted to work with, or creating content for them, or doing stuff, and they were paying me so little. And it wasn't even necessarily about the money. It was my time. Right. And I've just learned now, like the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, my time is just my most valuable asset. And I don't want to share it. I get so little of it. And the time I do have, it has to be there's something I absolutely love, and like monetarily is going to be beneficial, right? Like
Yeah.
we're just at a place where just don't need that. And you know what? It was so crazy whenever I like made that decision to stop. It was literally like brands that I never even thought would ever want to work with me had their starting price was like what I was, you know what I mean? What I was already like asking for. So it was like they're paying me more, but they're wanting, you know what I mean? They're wanting things and they're so happy. They're not asking me to edit all these little things here and there. And it's just so crazy how whenever you let go of something, you think, oh my gosh, I let go of this. I shut this door. Another door won't open. And it does immediately whenever you align with it.
Well, because you're trusting the universe, right? You're trusting God, you're trusting that creative energy. And I always tell my clients, you can always make more money. You cannot make more time, right? So once it's gone, right? So that is such an important thing to understand. The second thing is, to your point, is there's only so much energy. Like think of like, like a room, right? There's only so much shit you can put in a room, right? You can hoard, you can stack things up to the ceiling, but there's going to be a point in time where you can't even fit like a little piece of paper into that room, right? It's just going to explode all over you. And it's the same thing with what we do with work, where we are like, oh, but we should be so grateful for these little like peasant pesos that these brands are giving me for all of this work. Where it's like, if you just say, you know what, my time is worth more than that. And I know what I make an hour or what I would charge for something like this. But then you're like, but I'm just trying to be like humble and I'm just trying to be grateful. And what people don't understand is the only way to make more room in the room is to pull some of the stuff out of it, because then it creates this opening where all the things that were blocked before creates this new flow of energy. And then the bigger things come, because the universe looks at you and says, yes, Katarina, you got it. That was a flex to say no to this smaller thing. There's a meme. I'm going to send it to you. It's like of this little girl with a little tiny teddy bear. And then Jesus is standing in front of her and he has this like massive teddy bear that he's hiding behind his back. And Jesus is like, give me the teddy bear. Like to the little girl, and she's like, no, Jesus, I love it. And he's like, yeah, but the whole thing is, but look what's behind his back. If you just give up this small thing, what's going to actually happen? But people are so afraid and they live in such a state of lack and scarcity mindset. Like they don't really realize that we're living in a very abundant universe and there's more than enough to go around. But you have to prove to the universe, like, I trust you. I know that I don't have to just keep doing these little tiddlywink things. I can I can hold out for the big thing. Cause like people are like, what if this never happens to me? And it's like, what if the last 20 years of your life was just getting you ready for this one moment where everything was going to come into full alignment and then you were going to get your biggest payoff ever?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to trust. And that's the scariest thing for people. And especially when you grew up in a very non-trusting life as a child growing up. Like I didn't have a lot of trust. When my dad, who was an alcoholic and a drug addict, would say, hey, I'm going to come to your game, or I'm going to come and watch you do this thing at school. And I would look out in the audience and he wouldn't be there. What that tells you as a child is people say things and they break their promises and you can't rely on anyone else. And then what happens is, as an adult, it just spills over into your adult life. And so then instead of trusting your significant other or a colleague, you're like, I'm just going to do it all myself because then it'll get done if I do it all myself. And then you're like, oh, no wonder why I'm burnt out and I'm sick all the time and I'm a hateful, angry, frustrated, resentful bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I've been there where it's like, oh, okay, I can only rely on myself and only myself can do it. And it's like, no, that's not the case. And then, I learned throughout marriage, I feel like marriage is such a teaching thing of your childhood, right? Like you go through and you're like, oh, okay, I do a lot of weird things. Whenever you live with someone, you choose to grow and share a life with them. It really just, you see like a mirror image of yourself, right? Because you motivate the other person, you push the other person. But when you're also not motivated, it also kind of shows up, right? Like you both kind of match each other, so to speak.
100%. well, that's why I think that marriage or like really serious relationships like that are the biggest teachers. It's the biggest mirror because it's showing you like, see all your trauma? Well, you think that this person's going to heal this trauma in you, but then he can't do it for you. So then you guys just trauma bond within each other, like trying to like work through your childhood stuff instead of being like, no, this is not the way to do it. Yeah, 100%. I loved being alone before I got married, and I'm very specific and set in my ways. And then when I married my husband, he's a Virgo and I'm Aquarius, and he's 14 years older than me, and he's very like logical, and I'm more of like a dreamer and a creator and stuff like that. So even though there's parts of our marriage where it's like, I want to strangle him sometimes,
Yes.
I also look at him and I go, oh my God, thank God for you. Because if it wasn't for you, like he's the one that grounds me and says, all right, sister, take a little seat. You're out of control. And then for him, he'll say to me, he goes, one of the best things about our relationship being with you is like, you help me dream. Yeah, because when you're very like pragmatic and you very logical and scientific and mathematical, it's very hard for those type of, left brain versus the right brained people, how they think. So it's like a good relationship. And it doesn't even have to be like a sexual marriage love relationship. It can just be a partner in work or a colleague or a coworker or a friend or whatever. All of the relationships in your life are supposed to help you evolve and grow. And if they're not, even if it's a person who you do a service on, if you're doing a service on someone and when they leave your room or your office and you feel worse than before they came in, that's a red flag to say like, it ain't it, honey. I was actually talking to a client the other day, and she's in the service industry and the beauty industry. And she was talking about a client of hers, and she goes, oh my God, this woman she's a nightmare. She's so awful. She's this, she's that. And I was like, why don't you get rid of her? Like, you don't need her. Like, you'll probably get 10 amazing clients who are going to like treat you like a queen. And she's like, well, she always like really tips me really well. And I was like, okay. I was like, what did he do, Di? You have to like literally let her abuse you for 90 minutes of that beauty thing that you're doing with her. Like, honey, ain't no amount of money ever gonna have me sign up for that kind of energy. But I know a lot of people in the service industry, they're just like, well, the money's so good. So I'm just gonna just deal with it. And like, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal because it's just reinforcing your not enoughness, your self-worth, and that you just have to like suck it up and bear it and grin it. I don't know if you've ever said this. I want to know. I love how I'm like interviewing you now, but
No, I love.
have you ever
I was like, I'm going to let Katie just like take the reins today. I was like, she's just going to take it and we're just going to go with it.
I love you. Thank you for allowing that,
Of course. No, I loved it.
Have you ever said, and I don't know if you ever said this, but have you ever said, I have a very high pain threshold?
Yes, yes. And you know what's so funny is I don't know if you feel this way, but a lot of my clients, at least, that will say it. Now, it's a 50-50 shot, but sometimes the ones that say it, I'm like, and then it turns out they don't. That's the thing. But also it's like,
Agreed.
what is so prideful that makes us like that? You know what I mean?
I would always say this to, like, let's just say I was going for like a massage and I would have like this hardcore Russian older woman, like Olga. Yeah. And she's like getting in there and I'm like literally like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up, But then you're like, no, it's good for me to get massaged like this because, I was in the fitness industry and I was always like hurt or whatever. And she's like, am I hurting you, honey? And I go, no, I have a high pain threshold. And she stops for the massage. And she goes, that's not a badge of honor.
Ooh.
And I was like, excuse me? Like, what? Like, you're going to talk? Because I was like, I'm a boss bitch. I'm a this. I'm like, I'm so tough. I'm so strong. And at first I was taken aback, like, don't talk to me like that. But then I actually started thinking about it. And I was like, my God, where did this come from? And I started really thinking about it, like, and I was doing a lot of shadow work and like all the stuff I teach on the app and like what I write about in my book and talk about on my podcast. But I was doing a lot of like really deep shadow work. And I was realizing like when you're a little kid and you're going through like a traumatic experience, like I was like, my mom would beat the shit out of me when I was a little kid. I grew up with like an old fashioned Portuguese, like European mom who like, they would just hit their kids with wooden spoons. And that was like a totally normal thing, right? That my mother's always like, God, thank God I wasn't, it didn't have kids in this day and age. Like you guys were already been in the system, like a million times over. But I grew up in the 80s, so that's what some people used to do to their kids or whatever. And I remember like my mom like hitting me with like slippers and wooden spoons and all this stuff when I was bad. And I remember like her hitting me and me callousing myself. And I'll never forget like the day that she was hitting me with like a wooden spoon, and I was just like, is that all you got? Kind of thing. And then she was like, oh shit, this isn't good. Like she's a little too big for this and it's kind of getting out of hand, whatever. And so what happens is that parlays that I have a high pain threshold into burning yourself out at work, like working, oh, I'm not just going to work 5 hours a day. I'm going to work 15 because the harder I work, the more worthy I am. And the harder I work, the more money that I'm going to make and all these things. And you don't want to say no to the money and you don't want to do this. And then it happens in your relationships where you get into relationships with friends or partners and they treat you like shit. And you're like, I'm a tough bitch. Like I can fix them. If I'm just like stronger and tougher and I just take more abuse, like they'll wake up one day and they'll see like I'm worthy and like they'll change, right? Or it happens at work when you're working for a company and they're treating you like trash and you're just like, yeah, but like I have really good health insurance and like I have 2 weeks off paid vacation and like I get like bonuses and all this shit. Please, like we have to stop that mindset. And I'm saying this to you and your listeners, but I'm also reminding myself because, burning yourself out and being in pain and being sad and depressed and anxious all the time is not a badge of honor, right? I think wealth and enoughness and richness today, like the new wealth is really about having freedom and flow and starting your mornings off very like just having my coffee with my kitty cat outside and like maybe I'm going to move my body for a little bit or I'm going to sit in the sun because most people in this day and age, especially people in the service industry, they wake up to the alarm, right? They hit the ground running. They get in their car. They're working 15, 16-hour days. And if they get home at night and they have like, an hour to like watch bad television just to numb out in front of the television and drink a bottle of wine, like that's their life. And it doesn't have to be that way. But it's really about understanding once more that how much we do in a day is not how worthy we are, right? How much we give to people is not about being a good person, right? It's about understanding that we have to show up for ourselves first. And then if we do that, everything else will fall into place and that there's always enough to go around and we're not going to miss the opportunity. Whatever is for us is going to be for us, whether it's 5 years down the road or yesterday. And really not only saying these things and like understanding it on like a cerebral 3-dimensional level, but also taking it into us on a cellular level and understanding it as like a divine truth. And I think that that's the shift that we all have to make in this world, but not everyone's going to do it because they're so, I hate to say this, but a lot of people are addicted to the grind. They're addicted to the hustle. They don't even know who they would be if they didn't have that.
I mean, I relate to that. Like right now with what kind of, it's so weird. It's like I'm doing well, you know what I mean? But it's like I even like subconsciously will be thinking and it's like, oh, but I like title wise, it's changed. You know what I mean? And I'm like, but who cares? You know what I mean? It's like a me thing. It's the way that you view yourself. And I think a lot of people view themselves on, I'm this, or I work for this place, or I do this, or I outperform these people versus looking in and be like, okay, but just because that's the way the world sees me, how do I see myself? Because if you don't see yourself differently, it's nothing's ever going to change.
Like, who cares how other people see you? I also think that, this has a lot to do with social media. I hate to always like shit all over social media, but like, think about this. Like, you're much younger than me, but like, I grew up in an analog childhood where there were no cell phones. Like, if you left your house in your little shit car in high school, like your little beater, and you had to like call home, you would have to pull over on the side of the road and find a payphone and have quarters and change in your pocket to actually call and tell your mom like, hey, I'm going to be 10 minutes late or, whatever. Right. So the way that I grew up is very different. So I kind of remember that time in life where you would just be, right? Like there's always like this funny meme where it's like, I'm so glad that I grew up in a time where there were no phones at parties and like you could just be blackout in a field, like after drinking like, booze that you stole from your parents, like booze cabinet or whatever.
Yes,
like
I remember I had guy friends that like slept in like a ditch that we had. Like I'm like, what? Like people can't do that nowadays. It'd be all over the media.
Oh, it'd be all over social media. Someone would be going to jail. Someone would be canceled. So I remember those times, and obviously you do too. And I think that a lot of the things that I've been telling myself is like, it's almost like I'm craving to go back to like 1987. And, we have this nostalgia from like for the olden days. Like, remember when things were simple, and remember when things like you didn't have to create content. You didn't have to always be like selling yourself on social media because, as you know, like this is what we do, right? Like I have my Instagram, you have your Instagram. Every day I wake up and I'm like, okay, what am I posting today? Okay, my podcast is coming out. I have to post about the podcast. I have to do show notes. I have to do this thing. I have to send an email out. I have to do all these things. What if like that is not the thing anymore? Like, what if it's just like being in your most grounded, feeling the full expression of the universe like ring through you, and just doing your ultimate best work with each one of your clients at that moment. And then when you're done, you just close up shop, you wipe your hands and you walk away. What if it's the thing that you think is the old way is actually the way to do things? Because I'll tell you something right now. I don't give a shit how many times I post on Instagram and how many stories I do and how many things I do on YouTube or podcasts. I do not get my clients like that. Clients are not attracted to me from that. You know how clients are attracted to me? When Candace Marino, one of my closest friends, says, "Hey, you're the reason why I have a business like this. And I want you to come on this retreat to Costa Rica. And I want you to like teach these girls what you taught me so that, they can evolve their lives." And I was like, "Well, what do I have to do?" And she's like, "Just do this and this and this. And then the rest of the time you can just play, meet the girls, go to the pool, have fun." That is totally living in divine energy, right? I mean, obviously we were posting our highlight reel on social media.
Yeah, but not that much though. You know what I mean? I
No,
feel like we were all very much there and we were
we were all
present.
everyone was so present, so mindful, so in the moment. But just from that one retreat, because girls that were there saw what I did and what I bring to the table. And of course, Candace, thank you so much. Like, she's obviously, like, Katie is one of the reasons why I am who I am today. And obviously you guys all admire her and what she's accomplished, right? I work with so many girls now from that retreat. And I didn't have to post on social media. I didn't have to like whistle in the marketplace. I didn't have to sell myself on the side of the road, right? Or just giving your best service possible. And then that person, they go on their social media and they say, "Oh my God, I just got the best facial from Katarina," or "I just got the best business coaching session from Katie," or "I just was on her app and she did this live coaching session. It was incredible." I don't have to go do that for myself. Or it's simply like old school word of mouth, because like I respect and trust you. Okay. I love you. Right. And
I
you know
know.
that.
I love you.
So if you tell someone, "Hey, I work with this woman and this is what she does," I know the person that you're going to send me is going to be on point.
Because they're going to be
Right.
a high quality person because, like, I
Yes.
am what I attract, right?
Exactly. But when you do this shit on social media and it's like the parasitical, vampirical energy comes out, and they're like, we'll talk about estheticians for a second. Like, people think like the reason why Candace is the way she is and why she's making millions of dollars and speaking for all these huge skincare companies and doing like amazing shit, they think it's because of me. And then they try to get to me to become the next Candace. But what they don't understand is like Candace is her own entity with her own experiences and her own human design and her own goals, dreams, and aspirations. And for someone like maybe like you, Katarina, you can't be like Candace because it's not in alignment with who you are energetically as a human. So that's what happens. And I think that's one of the biggest, saddest things that I see in this industry is people, instead of just being who they are, but like admiring people like Candace and like you and saying like, "Oh, like I love these parts of them. Like, let me kind of adopt these little things that they do because it's like feels good to me." They try to become little baby Candaces and little baby Katarinas. And then they get the thing and then they're miserable because it's actually not for them.
I agree with that. And whenever I teach girls, I always keep, you're going to have to look it up, but it's just Honest Glow. And I keep this page because at the time, I think it has more followers because, just even though I don't post on it, but I had 1,200 followers and I
Wow.
had over 400 clients that are still with me to this day. And I had just moved from
Amazing.
Jacksonville. I moved from Seattle to here. And I've seen all of these clients now, they've had babies, they've gotten married, they've had multiple babies. Some of them have had losses, some of them have had divorces, some of them
Mhm.
have, I've seen now their husbands, I see some of them their wives. I see all of these things and we've built a life together. And that's something I always try to tell my, students anytime I teach is I'm like, you know what? Like you have to think about a client too for a lifetime. And I think that's something too, like people look at even like Candace or myself or you, and they look at things and they look at this part versus the lifetime of someone. So you can never mimic what someone else is because all of their trauma, all the good, the bad, the ugly, it's turned them into who they are and the goals and the dreams that they want. And that's why they attract the people that they want, right? Like if you look at that page, like it wasn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, my before and afters were nice. And at the time, not everybody was posting before and afters. Everybody was like, oh, it's the aesthetic industry. We're going to
Yes.
like gatekeep everything. Nobody talked about stuff. But even that, like it was just, I was attracting who I was and I showed up and I was just being genuine and being kind. And I
Yes.
think that that's why I got those beautiful, amazing clients that are still with me to this day is because I just showed up and was myself. And so if you
100%.
show up and you're not yourself, you're not going to like your clientele. You're not going to like who you're with every day.
You're not going to like
Yeah,
yourself because
you're
you're
going to
not
be
being
like, who
true to
am
yourself.
I? Like, what mask am I putting on my face today?
100%. I've had so many girls that, obviously they know I coach Candace because Candace is very vocal about that. And they'll come to me and they'll say, like, I want to do exactly what Candace does. I want to travel. I want to speak. I want to do this. I want to open this massive spa. I want 30 employees, right? And then I'll say to them, okay, well, let's just take that and put that on the little back burner for a second. And I'll say to them, how do you desire to feel every day of your life? And they'll give me these feeling words, they'll say like, I desire to be grounded and organized. And, I like to be at home. I like to, be very slow and intentional and, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, guess what, babe? Everything that you just said is the antithesis of what Candace is and how she lives her life. Like, if you want to travel all over the world, like Candace is never freaking home.
I know. I don't know how she does it. I see her and I'm like, oh, like personally for me, I mean, I love that for her, but personally for me, I couldn't, I would feel just
Same.
overstimulated. Do you know what I mean?
Totally burnt out, overstimulated, but her human design and who she is as a person, she thrives in that energy. She also, like, she can have employees. She doesn't take shit personal. She is a great leader. She just tells people like, this is how I want it and this is how it is. And like her employees respect her and they just fall in line. Me, I cannot have employees. I can have subcontractors who like do things that I don't want to do, like a podcast editor or whatever, or an editor or like copywriter or this thing or a person that deals with my website. But I don't have employees because I take, and this is something I'm working on still, I take a lot of shit personal. Like, I just do. Like, people will say something to me, I'm like, "What did you just say to me? Like, who do you think you are? Like, why did she say that to me?" It's just who I am, it's just how I was, and again, I know it's bad, I'm working on it, right? Candace doesn't give an she doesn't care. She's like, "Oh, you don't like it? That's okay. That doesn't work for you? That's fine." She doesn't take anything personal. So that's the thing is like you have to say to yourself, who am I truly? And just because like I look at Candace, for example, and I'm like, oh my God, her life is so amazing. And she's like jet setting and she's always somewhere new and she's speaking for like she speaks for like some of the biggest skincare companies in the world. Do you think it's easy just to get up on stage in front of 10,000 people and like do your work and speak and do all these things? Like, no. Not at all. Do you think it's easy to like work with all these Hollywood people who are like very demanding and like very privileged and used to getting what they want? Like, but the thing about Candace is she doesn't care. Like she does nothing phases her in the way. Now I know Candace personally. There's a lot of things that do phase her and a lot of things that do upset her, but those things do not. So for me, I could never do what Candace does. And I've done it in the past. Like when I had my television show Wicked Fit, my reality TV show on Bravo. uh, and I had to do like press junkets where I was like going all over the world and speaking and being on different television shows and all this stuff. Like the first couple of days, you're like, yes, this is so fun. Like it's exciting, it's new. By the third, fourth, fifth week, you're on another plane. You end up like, where am I? Am I in Milwaukee? Am I in New York City? Who am I speaking to? What am I doing? What do I have to wear? Like you're just so burnt out because it's not in my human design and it's not who I am. I'm a homebody. I like freedom, meaning I don't want a tight schedule. I want to just like get up and do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. Now, mind you, I have clients that book times with me where I'm speaking, but I do it in a way where it's like, I know, okay, I'm seeing these 3 clients today, but I have breaks. I can go outside and ground. I can like have a snack. I can go to the bathroom. Like I can like meditate or whatever. Where other people, they can just work 15-hour days and not even, it doesn't even phase them, you know? But I've done it before because I thought you have to hustle, you have to grind, sleep when you're dead. And who cares if you're burnt out? And who cares if you're depressed and anxious? Like it doesn't matter. But as you get older, that those same things, they hit you like a ton of bricks. And the more you know yourself, the better you can be. Right. So when people try to emulate other people, I say, admire them. Take little pieces of what you love about how they show up in the world, but do not copy them and do not think that their life is for you. Because I'm telling you, if you do, you're going to be a very sad, sad sack real quick.
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I like there's been plenty of trade shows that they were like, "Oh, please speak," and I was so excited. I'm like, "This is the dream. This is what I want." Well, I went, and then all these girls were like, "Let's go to the after party after and let's do this." Katie, you would laugh at me. I left early. I flew in, I spoke, and you know me, like I spoke, I did them both back to back, and I was like
Yep.
a perfectionist. And don't get me wrong, like everybody had amazing feedback. They asked for me to speak again, all the things. I left, like I found another flight that wasn't like the next day. I found one that was like 2 hours later after I spoke, and I left because I was
Good
just
for
like,
you.
I was so overstimulated. I was like, I just need to be home in my jammies. Like this was amazing and I loved it, but then I was done, and
Yeah.
I've learned, like, if I'm going to do those speaking things now, I do one a day. I don't do two. I do not
Yes.
do back to back. And
Yes.
I don't want to hang out with anyone after. And
No.
it's not that I didn't value those people or that I wasn't happy to spend time
Of
with them.
course.
It was just, I was like, I'm done now. Like it was just too much for me. So like whenever I see like Candace doing some of those things, I'm like, oh my God, girl, good for you. But
God
like,
bless.
I mean, like I had like 400, 500 people in a room and I was just like, and there's
Yep.
something different too with, I'm so good, I think, one on one with people. Like, I love having deep conversations. And I know you're similar to that, where
Oh, yeah.
I hate like short conversations. I hate, how are you? How's the news? Like, I hate all
Yeah.
that. I hate that BS.
Small
I
talk
love like
kills
the
me.
real shit. And you don't get the real shit unless you like are one on one with someone, you know?
And I don't know if you feel this way or if you've ever felt this way, and you probably do because you and I are very similar and we have very similar like childhood backstories or whatever. But I started realizing recently that I don't feel safe around a lot of people.
I
And
think
I don't
because we
mean
don't
like,
control it. You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes. And I don't mean like someone's going to shoot me or like they're going to beat me up. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like energetically safe because I'm the same way as you. I don't like small talk. I am definitely what they call an ambivert. So like a lot of people think I'm an extrovert, but I'm only an extrovert around the people that I feel safe around. And when I don't feel safe around you, like I'm more of like I'll sit back, I'll watch, I'll be very quiet, I'll just kind of like take it all in or whatever. And that's another thing about me too is like when you know yourself, like, okay, when I am around, like, let's just say I, have to speak in front of 10,000 people in a massive auditorium, which I've done many times. I'm the same as you. I want to, it's like Saving Private Ryan, get in and get out, right? It's
Yes.
like, I want to get there. I want to literally walk on stage. I don't want to sit in the wings. I want to just go right on stage. I want to drop the mic. And you saw me in Costa Rica, right? And then I want to go back to my hotel room or I want to get back on that plane and go back home. I don't want to go to the after parties because what happens is a lot of those people, they see you and they're like, she's not a human. She's now here for my education and to serve me. So then what will happen is people will be like, hey, and I'm sure this happens to you all the time. Can I take you to coffee and like pick your brain about like how you did, right? Nothing makes my butthole pucker more than someone that wants to pick my
I
brain.
hate the brain picking. I'm like,
Ugh.
yeah, I'm like, yes, the years and, hours of university YouTube or the certifications we've done or just
Yes.
life experiences. Sure, let me just share all of that. Make a PowerPoint for you and I'll bring it.
Yep. Yep. Or just the small talk or being interviewed by people. Like a lot of people will think that we're having a conversation, but they're literally just interviewing
Yeah,
me.
they're
And I'm
like
like,
Spitfire. Boom, 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 boom.
And I'm like, oh God, like, geez, like I'm not even on a podcast where will someone talk to me this way, So I started realizing I don't feel safe around a lot of people. And even like some of my past clients, I can think back, I'm like, wow, I never had a good relationship with that client. And then I realized, oh my God, it's because I never felt safe around them. There was always something that like God was like, ooh, they're not for you or whatever. So like we have to keep ourselves energetically safe. We have to understand who we truly are. We can't get wrapped up in the constantly creating to keep relevant, to keep in the algorithms, right? Because that is not higher dimensions of reality. That's very much living in the three-dimensional, very boring, very mundane energy, where I choose to always be in higher dimensions of reality, where I believe like we live in a beautiful world. No matter what and people will come for me for this. They're like, look at the world, it's falling apart, everything's fucked up. It's like, honey, this has been going on since the dawn of time, just different people and different tactics and different tools. Maybe they didn't have nuclear warheads 3,000 years ago, but they had some other crazy ass shit that they were doing to each other. And so I think that we think like, I heard someone recently saying like, we're in the worst of times, and it's like, that's your belief. So whatever you believe shapes your reality. So I choose to believe that I'm in a world of there's more than enough to go around. Everyone that's in my life is for my highest, greatest good. I think the right way. I speak properly. I do the correct deeds that align with who I am and where I'm going and who I desire to evolve into. And I don't pay attention to like muggle shit, like friggin' Harry Potter,
I know
like
you said that. I was like, I love you.
I don't want to be like a muggle. Like, I don't want to be like, oh my God, did you watch the news? Did you watch the news? Like, it's like, yeah, we have to be informed to a point. But like my grandmother always used to say to me when I was a little girl, when the Lord wants you, honey, he knows where to find you. So it's like, and 98% to 99% of the shit that we worry about on a daily basis in our lives never fucking happens.
No, it doesn't.
So all we have to do as women and men in the service industry who are showing up and we're putting our best selves forward is just fill up your cup, give the best energy service to the best of your ability, and then shut it down. That's it.
Thank you.
It's really that simple.
Yeah. Katie, thank you for this. Like, I think this was, I mean, you had so many gold nuggets in here. I think anyone from any walk of life can take, anything from it. And just, you're so inspirational. So thank you, like, for everything. And I'm going to kind of totally put you on the spot here because I kind of let you take the reins because I was like, oh my gosh, Katie's just going to completely just like change people's lives. And I know that. And you guys are going to have to check her out. I'll leave everything in the show notes. And her app is incredible. Highly, highly recommend it. But what does beauty mean to you? It's something I always like to ask all my guests. And I know it's deep.
If you would have asked me that like 25 years ago when I was the official coach for Miss Universe and Miss America and Miss USA, I would be like, it's 6-pack abs and it's a perfect, skin and it's like great boobs and a perfect butt and like whatever. Now that I'm 44 years old, for me, beauty is truly about living a slow, mindful, intentional life surrounded by the people and the things and the experiences that fill up your cup and fill up your cup to the point of who you truly are and not trying to live someone else's life. Just be authentically, unapologetically you. I don't know if there's anything more beautiful, in my opinion.
I love that. That's such a beautiful way to look at it. I don't think anyone has ever answered the question like that before. So thank you.
Well, you weren't dealing with the esoteric bitch over here.
That's true.
No, this was a pleasure. This was so fun. And I hope that I really brought a lot to the table for your listeners out there. And yeah, we can live the life of our dreams. We just have to create it on a minute to minute basis and just be really intentional and really know ourselves, right? It's like to thine own self be true, right? Shakespeare said that once. And it's like, I really mean that. Like, what do we truly desire? Because the word desire, the root DE means of the Father. So anything that is of desire, like divine with that root, means it's coming from a place of sacredness. So instead of saying like, I want and I need, say like, what do I truly desire? And the right messages will come to you. And then it's up to you to allow yourself to go down that path and not the path of what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I agree. It's just about finding yourself, and in this crazy life, we have many, many, many different selves, and it's constantly going to evolve and change. Katie, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so appreciative of you. I know you have such a busy schedule, and I mean, you're hustling in your own way, right?
I'm hustling intentionally. I hope that I come off that way, and like I really am just coming from a place of creativity and service and not expecting anything in return where, before I would be like, I'm going to give you this and you're going to give me this back. And now it's coming from a different place. So I'm never too busy for you and your listeners. And thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
Thank you.